If you want to know everything about the murder and what happened to the corpse of Kurt Cobain, stay strong, I warn you. I start. Also, the journalists, the investigators, even the investigator journalist defined the murder of Kurt Cobain one of the most cruel and atrocious murder of the history. So I start when 11 months ago, the American spy Fox television revealed this news. This news had to be already spoken in 2003, but on TV right now we got to know that Kurt Cobain corpse had been really mutilated. His corpse was allegedly mutilated, desecrated and dismembered at the funeral home. And so you must know. Already Max Wallace, who is the co-author of Love and Death, the murder of Kurt Cobain, knew this. But first of all was the journalist, investigator Richard Lee, a very courageous person. Even he had his career on journalism had been almost ruined, and only by now finally he can have his social and moral revenge. Richard Lee was the first one who only after 4 or 5 days after the death of Kurt Cobain immediately stated he was murdered. He was murdered. Now I tell you how he knew about the one of the most monstrous desecrations of corpse in the history. And you must know that in the United States it's a very, very serious crime. It's called the crime of desecration. And people who did this kind of horrifying crime is quite like a murder. So it's a crime punished with many years of jail. So Richard Lee stated, because he had this horrible tape, so he is the witness, but I explain you better the reason why, how it all happened before showing you very rare and creepy videos, concrete proofs. So in this tape the corpse of Kurt Cobain was taken to the funeral house, waiting to be cremated. Decision by Courtney Love. And what happened in the funeral home? Something that something that I confess you that I haven't slept when I got to know these news that unfortunately are true. So, when the corpse of Kurt Cobain was taken to the funeral house, waiting to be cremated, it happened, this mutilation, this desecration of his body. This is what there is in this horrifying tape. So, Kurt Cobain corpse was allegedly mutilated, desecrated and dismembered by Courtney Love's young friends. Of course, she didn't know it. Then she discovered the tape. By Courtney Love's young friends. The coroner of Kurt Cobain. The person who performed the autopsy on the corpse of Kurt Cobain, Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn, and young guys who had to take care of Kurt Cobain corpse awaited cremation. What they did! They are monsters! First, cut Kurt Cobain's penis off. Then they cut his caps and started to dance with Pearl Jam music. And then they immediately started to, in a horrifying way, to mutilate and to dismember Kurt Cobain's corpse. It's something that really makes me furious. So, what happened? When Courtney Love happened to see this video, immediately claimed that when Kurt's body was at the funeral home waiting to be cremated, the staff didn't do their job because she had the video of the desecration. So she denounced these people, but then thanks to an agreement of out of court in exchange of an undisclosed amount of money, not only Courtney Love, but also the mother of Kurt Cobain. I'm talking about Wendy O'Connor accepted to do this agreement out of court in exchange of an undisclosed amount of money. I'm completely disgusted but shocked because I can understand Courtney Love. If you have watched the previous parts of this documentary dedicated to the horrifying murder of Kurt Cobain. And in fact, the investigator journalist said they were all interested in money. Okay, I can understand Courtney Love. But Wendy O'Connor was Kurt Cobain's mother. and she preferred an agreement out of court in exchange of an undisclosed amount of money than vindicate, to have justice, at least for the desecration of his son. Inconceivable to me. So, Richard Lee, how he got the video to develop, to scream out to the world this horrifying hidden secret? Because I explain you why. Okay. Here I am. So, when not only Kurt Cobain was murdered 8,000%, and that was completely ignored by the media, and then I explain you the reason why with videos. With this, everybody sold their souls for money. I won. Not only was completely ignored by the media despite of magnitude of evidences, Richard Lee was the first journalist, investigator, and in 2002 got all the greenhouse photos released. As I told you in the first parts of this documentary, I saw all the photo released by the police department in 2015. But Richard Lee, thanks to Freedom of Information Act, he got these photos of the corpse of Kurt Cobain at the moment of the police found out the corpse, because they were called by the electrician who had to install the strongest alarm system, because Kurt urged in because he was afraid. I want to remind you, for people who haven't watched the previous parts of my documentary, that Kurt Cobain already on the vacation in Rome in 1994, March 1994, he wanted to divorce from Courtney Love, and Courtney Love already knew that Kurt wanted to divorce on March 1994, and Kurt was murdered, they say, on April the 5th, 1994. Instead, the body has been found on April the 8th, 1994. But the proofs are that, as investigators will tell you, he didn't die. He didn't die on April the 5th. It was another cover-up, because as I told you in the previous parts, when I watched all the photos of the corpse of Kurt Cobain when he was found out, I immediately saw that he didn't shoot at his head, of course, the position of the shotgun, and also that the blood on his face was so red, fresh, impossible that he died 3 days before. when he got these photos, I was telling you that Kurt, he didn't return when he returned to the United States, to the house where he lived with his wife, Courtney Love, but he went to rehab in Los Angeles for a few periods, immediately went to the divorce lawyer Rosemary Carroll. He wanted to divorce, absolutely. He wanted to detoxify completely and also have the custody of his beloved daughter Frances Bean while Courtney was still using drugs. So he had these photos against the Seattle Police Department. So he went in court asking that all these photos already in 2002, 2003 had to be released to everybody, because everybody with a brain who was able to watch at those photos, even me when I watched, immediately people had understood that it was murder 8,000%, and that he wasn't killed, shot at his head, but shot at his wonderful face, as I had already noticed when I watched all those photos of police department released from the police department in 2015. Tom Grant, do you know who Tom Grant is? For all the people who haven't watched the first parts of my documentary, you must know that when Kurt Cobain returned from Rome to the United States after having gone to divorce lawyer Rosemary Carroll and to rehab in Los Angeles for a brief period, he was really scared to be killed. He was really scared to be hurted or even murdered, and he was right. So in fact, he hid himself in the greenhouse that it's not in the center of Seattle. It's in a green zone on the river Washington. And he was waiting for the electrician to install the alarm system, the secure alarm system. And so when he went out of rehab, Kurt Cobain was so afraid to be killed that he hid himself in this greenhouse waiting for the electrician. So Courtney Love didn't know where her husband was. So she hired her private investigator, Tom Grant, to track Kurt Cobain. Tom Grant, of course, was a private investigator and he was in good faith, so he did his job and he discovered that Kurt Cobain was hiding himself in the greenhouse. Few days after, Kurt Cobain was found dead. So Tom Grant immediately realized to have been maneuvered by like a puppet by Courtney Love, and he also decided to go to the police department to state that he was hired to track Kurt Cobain by Courtney Love, and then he was found dead. But even in that case, police department, we don't care. And then there are, of course, the reasons why of their behavior in the concrete proofs I'm going to show you briefly in few minutes. So Tom Grant is seated firmly at the helm of this ship right now. He supports and he admires Richard Lee, and he stated that if Kurt will have justice, it will be mostly through Lee's contribution, and Richard Lee should be remembered and appreciated for putting his life on the line as he is, and above all, he was the biggest threat to the people who want to hide the truth concerning Kurt's death. If more people listen to him, this case would be solved already. In fact, 30 years have passed by. Think about the next April will be 30 years from the death of Kurt Cobain. 30 years waiting for justice. How Richard Lee got that terrifying video in which there is the desecration of Kurt Cobain corpse. Courtney ranted about it on her site, then took it down after a day. A fan of hers happened to download it and send it to Richard Lee. So he watched the video, and unfortunately, in this desecration really happened. When I had this news, I haven't slept for all the night. No, it was something so horrible to know what really happened to Kurt Cobain. Not only brutally murdered, but also brutally mutilated and then cremated, and his ashes are parked in that temple near New York, and another part thrown down a river, really. So, talking about, of course, Richard Lee. Richard Lee didn't remain in silence, but already Richard Lee went to the Seattle court to show immediately that the proofs about the case of Kurt Cobain was murdered 1,000% and not suicide. And he brought the proofs, and it's incredible now that I have this news to know that Richard Lee, that now I become his fans. Richard Lee, a journalist, investigator, by now he's 62, noticed what I noticed this year when for the first time I watched all the photos of the crime scene, the body, how Kurt Cobain corpse was found, and I paid great attention to every detail. Richard Lee stated that the head of Kurt Cobain was still on the neck, as I told you to have noticed in the first parts of this documentary. The shell and the brain, and his brain, wasn't splatted on the wall or on the ceiling, and if the shotgun was in the position in which the police, the electrician, found his corpse, his brain had to be splatted on the wall and even on the ceiling. And then, because Richard Lee didn't shut his mouth at all, is one of the most courageous people. I really admire him in an incredible way, because as also Tom Grant stated, he was so close to the truth, and he was the biggest threat to all the people, also people in police. He risked his life to prove that Kurt Cobain was murdered, and to catch the killers. So, at the time, I'm talking about almost 30 years ago, Richard Lee had been blackened by medias, said he was a madman, a junkie, and then they made mockery of him. And now, in 2024, and now, it's the time of his social and moral revenge after being unjustly mocked for almost 30 years. He was right since the beginning. And after Richard Lee, also Max Wallace was the second investigator. And so, really fresh news. 1 month ago, I'm talking about February 2024, and now we are in the middle of March 2024. So the news I'm going to tell you is very fresh. Do you remember Jan Halperin? For all the people, followers who followed me in the first parts of my documentary, they know who Jan Halperin is. Jan Halperin is a very famous author, journalist, filmmaker, journalist, investigator. So I think that most of the world know who Jan Halperin is. I'm talking about for those countries in which is less famous. Jan Halperin, of course, 1 year ago published his masterpiece. I really suggest you to read, because it's absolutely a masterpiece. Everything you want to know about the murder of Kurt Cobain is in this book. Case closed. The Cobain murder, the killing and cover-up of Kurt Cobain. and he gave his exclusive first interview about the news concerning Kurt Cobain and also his upcoming book at the United States Sun, where he also challenged Courtney Love to take a lie detector test to prove that she is innocent, and she refused. My motto is an innocent has nothing to hide. So now the mythical mammoth Jan Halperin gave another shocking interview the last month at the News International. The News International magazine, where he reveals something really shocking, and now it's in this not only there is the shocking interview by Jan Halperin, but I want to read you the title of this the News International, so you know why there have been for so much time the cover-up of the murder of Kurt Cobain, because the coroner of Kurt Cobain who performed the autopsy, then now we have discovered that it was a fake autopsy. Of course, he admitted already in 1995 that he had a conflict of interest. Why? Because Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn was the secret lover of Courtney Love. Courtney Love, maybe Nicholas Hartshorn didn't know that Courtney Love had more than a lover. I have the proofs, of course, of what I say. So she had been in only 2 years of marriage absolutely unfaithful to Kurt Cobain. So it's a really injustice for Kurt. And he was maybe the closest lover of Courtney Love, so he revealed that he could have compromised the autopsy because he wasn't lucid. And he stated that when he performed the autopsy on Kurt Cobain, may have been a cover-up because he wasn't objective. And now, finally, it's what this horrible secret remained hidden for so many years. Finally, it's out in the News International. Kurt Cobain's coroner had an affair with rocker's wife Courtney Love. Report the coroner, Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn. I don't lose any other time. Let's watch these videos. So finally, here we are in front of my personal computer. As I told you before, this TV, I want to stress the name of this TV, American Spy Fox Television. I really suggest you to follow this TV, and I also want to add that the TV presenter is a person I really admire very much because he is great and very, very courageous. So this news about Kurt Cobain was given about 11 months ago. I make you see something, okay? Let's go.
A phone conversation with Max Wallace, the author of Love and Death, the murder of Kurt Cobain. This dude is super knowledgeable about that case. He was the original investigator. Okay, to be honest with you, the original investigator was Richard Lee. Richard Lee was a respected journalist in Seattle. Okay, he was no joke. He believed Courtney had something to do with Kurt's death beginning like 4 or 5 days after they found Kurt's body. And he started reporting on what happened at the funeral home. I found out from Max Wallace that is true. The funeral home paid an undisclosed amount of money to Kurt's mother, Wendy O'Connor, and I believe some went to Courtney as well. There were younger guys who worked at that funeral home at night. Supposedly, their job was to, protect the bodies, protect the dead from robbers or anybody who would come in and do nasty things. And I guess they, from what I'm hearing, they may have cut his they picked up his corpse and danced with it while listening to Pearl Jam music. Just things that you do not do with somebody's corpse, And honestly, they should have been charged with desecration of a corpse. But apparently, Wendy and Courtney were more interested in money, so they just settled out of court with an undisclosed amount. And Courtney, surprisingly, did a pretty, I wouldn't say a stellar job, but a pretty good job of keeping that whole story under wraps. I've learned quite a bit from Max Wallace.
So, as you have just heard, these are Courtney Love and this Kurt Cobain's mother. Have you heard what this TV presenter, who has the proofs, told you? That unfortunately the horrible mutilation, the crime of desecration of the body of Kurt Cobain unfortunately happened. And I don't wonder about Courtney Love because but the mother of Kurt Cobain accepted an undisclosed amount of money, knowing what happened, what the most horrifying desecration of body happened. It's just incredible. I suggest you to watch all these video to follow American Spy Fox television. I really admire this TV and the TV presenter who is very courageous. Really, I admire him deeply. And now, I want to make you we are okay. Do you remember when in the first parts of my documentary I talked to you about Jan Halperin? Jan Halperin is a very, very famous author, filmmaker, journalist, investigator, and but for the people who don't know him, or for the people who haven't watched who haven't watched the first parts of my documentary about the murder of Kurt Cobain, I want to remind you who Jan Halperin, because then I'm going to show you the very fresh article released 1 month ago on February 2024, and I hope that this year Kurt Cobain must have justice, because there are too many proofs about everything. So now I make you see who Jan Halperin is, for a few people who don't know him or don't know his masterpiece book released 1 year ago on March 2023. This is a myth. I am his fans. Here is Jan Halperin, who told you everything you can't imagine in his masterpiece bestseller book. I show you the book released on March 2023. For people who haven't watched the first, this is the fourth part of the documentary about Kurt Cobain's murder. Allora, the name of this masterpiece book is Case Closed. The Cobain murder, the killing and cover up of Kurt Cobain. It's really a masterpiece, and I really suggest you to read this masterpiece. As I told you, I have I ordered this masterpiece. I bought this masterpiece. So if you don't find it in the bookshops in your place, you can order it online. I really suggest you this masterpiece. And I'm not, of course, paid to make spots, because all the people, all books, people I admire, I must tell you and suggest you what a masterpiece is and which are the people who really worth. This is the book Case Closed, the Cobain Murder, the killing and cover-up of Kurt Cobain. Jan Halperin, absolutely a masterpiece. To give this news has been the international news. Look at the title. Kurt Cobain's coroner had an affair with rocker's wife, Courtney Love. Report and watch the date. This newspaper, this article has been published on February the 5th, 2024. 2024, so 1 month ago. This is a very, very amazing photo of Kurt Cobain, who deserves justice. And now I make you read what the article says. Okay. Okay. Kurt Cobain's autopsy may have been a cover-up. Coroner Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn, who performed the autopsy of the Nirvana frontman, was allegedly having an affair with Courtney Love, per Radar Online. In light of the new leaked, never-before-seen copy of Cobain's alleged autopsy report, best-selling author Ian Halpering, who penned Case Closed, The Cobain Murder, made shocking new claims about Dr. Hartshorn. Halperin alleged via Radar Online that Dr. Hartshorn allegedly boasted of an intimate relationship with Cobain's wife Courtney Love, which he claims compromised the objectivity of the autopsy findings. Halperin has long contested Cobain's death as a suicide, suggesting evidence of foul play in the Cobain murder. The author has allegedly asked Love to take a lie detector test to prove her innocence, which she has always denied. As for Dr. Hartshorn, a self-proclaimed Nirvana fan and admirer of Love, and then we know much more, reportedly confessed to having a conflict of interest while performing the autopsy, and even went as far as to admit during a 1996 interview that he should have been recused from Cobain's autopsy. It's shocking. So even if this doctor had a conflict of interest, and then I make you hear Richard Lee, who clearly say that there have been a fake autopsy, a fraud, but at least he admitted his guilt in 1996. So it's incredible that we are in 2024 and still the killers, and also people involved in the desecration of the corpse of Kurt Cobain, that it's a crime called the crime of desecration, are out unpunished, and above all the killer or killers. Now, so listen what Richard Lee already stated in 2003. Absolutely, I have become his fan. I admire you so much. And I suggest you to follow this incredible journalist. I go listen what he said.
Into that thing called rock and roll history, because this newest aspect of the case added to particularly the revelations of 1994 about, the fake autopsy and all of that. Can't forget that all-important aspect of the case, that the whole autopsy was a fraud. Always important to bear in mind.
So, have you heard what he just told you? That the autopsy was a fraud. And then I make you see, and then I tell you really how to follow this incredible journalist. Here he talks about the corpse of Kurt brutally desecrated. I immediately arrive. Here we are.
Of all of the things that could be more shocking or disturbing than a fake autopsy that would propel this story into the outer realm of a rock and roll legend in this case based on fact, what would that thing be? Well, it would be a mutilation of the Cobain corpse. Mutilation of Kurt Cobain's corpse on these premises, allegedly involving employees or an employee of the King County Medical Examiner and allegedly several persons employed at this here joint. That is, these allegations coming from no one other than Courtney Love Cobain.
So, excuse me, I go...
This here joint. That is, these allegations coming from no one other than Courtney Love Cobain are that the body was taken from the Harborview site, put into a motor vehicle, and brought down the driveway here into this facility, then to be mutilated with body parts stolen, and even an obscenity carved into the Cobain corpse by a personnel of this facility, who then, as they were doing these crimes, videographed their crimes, with a tape somehow finding itself into the possession of Courtney Love. That's the allegation. And I've been working on this for the better part of a month, and believe me...
this was the most shocking revelation, and I want to make you see when he did this, because I'm not lying. Look! And first of all, I suggest you to follow this genius. Richard Lee is a very serious person who spent all his life to give justice to Kurt Cobain and to push to a twist best to get the killers who deserve the maximum. They must be arrested after 30 years after this horrible murder of Kurt Cobain. Look at this courageous journalist investigator, and I also suggest you to watch the whole video and all these reports, because I've become a fan. Is absolutely mythical and courageous. Look at the date. I'm not kidding. Kurt Cobain was mutilated. Richard Lee, Seattle Public Access TV, on April the 5th, 2003. Oh my God, he already knew everything more than 21 years ago. So, it's the time. I suggest you this video and all these reports. In this video, he also talks about that the date, as I told you, the date of death of Kurt Cobain is not for sure, because it doesn't coincide with many elements. Why on April the 5th? Then it talks to you about the suicide note, that it wasn't a suicide note, and it was, of course, completed by the killer, the fraud, the autopsy. But he also not only points the finger against, he openly accuses Courtney Love to be the killer of Kurt Cobain. He openly shows proofs that he is sure Richard Lee thinks that Courtney Love killed Kurt Cobain, and then he tells you all the motives and everything you want to know. But he also points his finger not only to the coroner, because he was Dr. Hartshorn admitted his guilt to have compromised, because this was this conflict of interest, and that he didn't perform well the autopsy on the corpse of Kurt Cobain. He reveals you the creepy details about the desecration, the crime of desecration of Kurt Cobain's corpse, mutilated, and all the horrifying, brutal acts on his body before being cremated. But also he points the finger against the police department, because he openly says that Courtney Love, with the inheritance of Kurt Cobain, who wasn't in time to divorce, and he wanted to divorce from Courtney Love. He also went to his divorce lawyer, Rosemary Carroll, but and he also called the electrician because he was terrified to be killed. He also points the finger against the police department of that time, because according to him, Courtney Love, with that money, bought almost all the police department and also the medias. who painted Kurt Cobain as a stupid junkie, auto-destructive man, and instead she was the heroine. She was a self-assured woman, she was an angel, and so on. So, according to Richard Lee, Courtney Love also paid the media to spot her like an angel, like the devoted wife who tried to save Kurt Cobain's life in Rome, and it was completely a bullshit, and then paid media to tarnish Kurt Cobain's reputation. Then it tells you more about where are the tapes, some tapes of Kurt Cobain disappeared, and much more. But this is the job of Richard Lee, so I suggest you to follow Richard Lee and to watch all these reports. I really love this investigator, journalist. I admire his courage because he risked his life to give justice to Kurt Cobain. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Really. An embrace to everybody, and justice, soon justice for Kurt Cobain.